I'd like to call to order this agenda meeting for July the 1st. Let us stand and have our pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let us pray. Again, we invite you here tonight to give us your wisdom and your guidance in making the decisions that are best for the citizens of Nashville. Amen.
Amen.
We have some minutes to approve, so let's look at the May 12th, 2020 call meeting minutes. Do I have a motion that we approve these?
I have one correction
Okay, are there any corrections?
on page 3. In reference to on the first paragraph. When we were talking about vacant lots and our business center. Lots of cover. Yes, now.
Only have one section at the end on sheet 22. And that is I asked Sam how much money we total. We had the end last paragraph. Thank the county for generosity, and I just asked how much they received total. County should be object that's no servitude. And on that same page, 2, both of those are 2 large entities, not municipalities.
Any other corrections? Second.
That will allow the town to be compliant with the programs and ordinance to prevent or supplies from the several cases proposed for. They make ordinance needed. Not right hearing, but certain types of positions and national graphic. Meeting agenda. So distribution system to install backward protection devices in order. Service lines, in some cases, have those devices yearly to make sure they work. The cost of backward devices and their tested is expensive for water users. Many water users are already using backward devices. And summary of the ordinance. Areas to road or red. But I think yeah. And then we'll forward. Next meeting will the water source or other protection. So I was on the outside, I was moving on my protection. And if things are directly to the right, and take that location. We got several layers of irrigation and sprinkler systems on the irrigation happening in our yard. So yes. That was going to be required, and tested by tester. 2003, state requires that suppliers of water is established. So
people from our to drain daylight, so insulate that flat rock if people so choose. But you know, it's just they came over this year. They're 6 or 7, you know, or 9 system with that essentially protecting the distribution system as hardwired. Installation dates, rehab, specific ongoing actions, scheduling, rule, address all project. Supplier, if they contract with the records they say that they're already, however, subject and records, records. Is, it's needed. Expense for staff, will test all that. Resident or property owner, business owner. And anything is going to be, it's going to be better for the community as a whole, because you know, system is the best part.
Make an adjustment. Just wonder how much they'll cost you.
It's going to be to come in somewhere between. They're expensive. Maybe $300 to $500.
Okay.
Still don't know.
Lee, I have one other question.
Yes, ma'am.
I was reading, when I was reading through it, it said that a certified backflow prevention assembly testers, we need those. Do we have anybody certified now that works with us, or how would we get somebody to do that?
Well, we have an ORC for the program,
Uh-huh.
right? Certified testers, you can find online. They're just, it's a portion of the state's website that offers up local testers by county. A lot of plumbers have a certified tester on staff, and you know, we'll be creating a database for people to choose from, and we'll, you know, however we format it, but of course, our hope is going to be to start local and then.
Would we need a
Branch out.
person to supervise this part, or do we have someone that knows how to supervise all this process?
We have someone that knows what to do with everything, you know, that's going on. It'll be a challenge to get this going, but at least we're going to get going. So, you know, it's nothing we're going to rush through. It's going to be slow, methodical, and well thought out.
Thank you so much. Any other questions from the council?
Yes, Lee, how would the residents know whether or not they're in compliance or not?
I think part of the ordinance, there's an application process that we'll have to do, and then, you know, we'll be in contact, especially early on. We'll be acting, I would say, more or less as a liaison between the resident, the inspector, and or plumber. A lot of the plumbers that are doing this will be familiar with the process, and then the inspections to locate the backflows that need testing, you know, that'll come from us, and then we'll probably do a lot of direct reaching out because it's something completely new to most people.
And how much time would the residents have to come into conformance?
Don't know what the ordinance says. I want to say it's 6 or 12 months, maybe. Yeah, it's a gracious period, especially onboarding and being that it's new to the town. So
Now, there was something in here that said that if you find it to be an emergency situation, that we can shut off water. Is that going to be more on the commercial end, or can you foresee that happening in some sort of residential situation?
I would imagine if it's in a residential situation, most likely it's going to be on a secondary tap. It's not going to be the domestic source. It's going to be a sprinkler meter or irrigation
Okay.
system.
So their whole house water would not be shut off.
Correct.
Good.
Do you have any major concerns about commercial entities, or, for instance, residential? Some people in town have wells that are grandfathered in.
Mhm.
Is that a concern?
People that have well water, you know, that are using that as their drinking water, that is not considered part of the public drinking water system. So, you know, I wouldn't have any concerns for our system for those that are on well water if they don't have a backflow.
As long as they're not connected.
As long as they're not connected to the town drinking water system, correct.
Are there any other questions from the council?
Lee, I have a question, Mayor. Will there be some means of notifying, particularly the residential?
Yeah,
customers, I guess?
it's probably, like I said, it's probably going to be a lot of direct contact, direct mail. And then hopefully at the same time we're rolling out this direct mail, we can also start when I'm just really excited about the new water bill format, because I think that's going to be the best way to get blurbs out,
Sure.
you know, with the best, with the highest rate of success. So, you know, hoping some sort of public works newsletter with every bill when that format comes or something, but the direct mail, as well as keeping everybody that does follow online posted with all that's coming with that new technology.
Any other questions? If not, Lee, we thank you for the information, and we will be looking over this and voting on it at our regular meeting. Thank you, Lee.
Thank you.
Is there a motion for us to come out of public hearing?
So moved.
Okay, all those in favor, let it be known by saying aye. Aye. Now we'll move on to our old business. The first old business we're gonna take care of is the public comment period and consideration of the Z 2020-01 request to rezone property at 0 Easton Avenue from A1 Agricultural Zoning District to O&1 Office and Institutional Zoning District. The parcel contains approximately 4.12 acres and is identified as Nash County Tax Parcel Number 3811-209-10025. Tina, do you want to talk to us about this tonight? Do you have any comments about this?
We're just bringing this forward because it was tabled at our last meeting.
Okay.
So to my knowledge, we have not received any comments on this. So now we're at the point that we vote on it.
Louise?
Has the planning board met on this?
Planning board made recommendation to approve it at your last.
It was the one where they met on like Tuesday.
Okay.
We met on Wednesday. Yeah,
And y'all met again on
Tuesday.
Tuesday. So it's been almost 3 weeks and we haven't heard from
We haven't
anyone.
heard.
And there was a write-up in the graphic.
Do I hear a motion that we approve this request to rezone?
So in doing so, this one has been a bit of an education for me, and thank you, Tina, for most of that education. So we need to do a consistency statement when we either approve or deny this. So in looking at office and institutional, it's 4.12 acres for this one. It is listed in our comprehensive plan for designation for future commercial use. According to our code, it's a small district that provides for a space for professional services, for certain institutional functions, and for medium, high, or high-density residential accommodations. And this district is particularly versatile because it's compatible with both commercial and with residential. It's one of those gateway or one of those transition areas, it's called, I guess, that is traditionally used between commercial and residential. So this one has been recommended by the planning board as being consistent with our comprehensive plan and for the future planned use because of that transitional type of district. So if anyone wants to make a motion to approve based on that.
Based on the planning board's motion to approve, I said that we approve it as town council.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
All those in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. So therefore, the request to rezone has been granted by the council. Our next is special public comment period in consideration of Z 2020-02 request to rezone property located at OS East Point Avenue from B-1 General Business Zoning District to R-4 Residential Zoning District. This parcel contains approximately 9.36 acres, and the parent parcel is identified as Nash County Tax Parcel 3810064845I19U. Do I hear a motion to approve this?
So for this one, I too have a little bit of a write-up here. So this one, it's listed in our, it's currently zoned as business, and it's listed in our future use portion of the comprehensive plan as commercial. That whole area behind Food Lion and Walmart is basically a commercial corridor that even goes farther down. And so with this, the proximately located residential areas are both low density and medium density. And an R4 is high density, and this one has the smallest amount of setbacks. So with this one, I do have a little bit of an issue with the actual density that we're introducing to this area. And as far as being consistent with our code, and I know this might not have been interpreted this way in the past, but our code actually specifically states that it's primarily to establish or accommodate existing residential areas where lot sizes are too small to be appropriate for any other zoning district. And this is not in an existing residential area. This is in a wide open commercial area that doesn't have anything keeping it so that the zoning would be inappropriate for any other lot size. And so, you know, being someone who reads words and words mean what they say and they say what they mean, I have a hard time with reconciling the words of our code for an R4 and also the consistency with our current plan and future use. But if anyone disagrees, so be it. Obviously, we don't want to stifle any sort of residential development.
Right.
I would much prefer, being that the surrounding areas are lower density and medium density, to see something that would fit more in with those densities.
But you say it's currently zoned as
B1.
commercial?
It's B1 and our future planned use is commercial. That whole area is supposed to be a commercial use. So that's something that we need to make sure we preserve enough commercial space. We want to know what that commercial district is going to look like. So if we want to introduce residential into there, that's fine, but what does that residential look like in comparison to the other surrounding residential areas?
Based on the location of all other residents around it, I don't anticipate any commercial going that way because it's all farmland.
So the commercial, if you look at the map on, it's just after the application, you'll see
Yeah.
what the future land use is, and that pink is commercial. So you'll see it goes all the way down to Oak Level. And what we're talking about is the one that's just south of Eastern, where you see the actual buildings for Food Lion and all.
Mhm. Does he have anything that he can enlighten us on?
We do have a representative of the rezoning applicant here this evening that might be able to answer some questions and shed a little more light on what Kate is talking about. Kevin, if you would, please.
Thank you, guys. I'm Kevin Barney with Stocks Engineering, and I'm representing the applicant here. Essentially, right now, what we have is the Food Lion Shopping Center, the Walmart Shopping Center. That area is kind of developed, and the owner's looking at, you know, how he moves forward with the rest of the property. So right now, certainly the land use plan does discuss and talk about that area should be commercial, and it's a good guide. But at the end of the day, it has to be fluid as well. And as things develop and as the market kind of steers us in one direction or another, we have to have the ability to change. So what we're looking for is something that's a good transition between that commercial and the Woodfield subdivision that's over across Oak Level Road. So as we make that transition, it's very difficult to go from a 10,000 square foot lot like Woodfield right behind the Food Lion Shopping Center. So we're trying to find that transition development that would work with something that has smaller lots, it's a little more high density. And then as we cross the railroad tracks, we would blend more into what Woodfield looks like versus what we have right behind the Food Lion Shopping Center and the railroad track. So the reason that they chose the R4 were a couple of reasons. One, they're looking for smaller setbacks. They're trying to generate a 38-foot wide home that's 50 foot deep. And the setbacks from the R4 allow the setbacks to be a little smaller to fit a much larger house on that footprint. And then the other issue is the cost that it's taken us to build streets today. So at the end of the day, the R4 gives us a 40-foot wide lot versus the R6, which is a 60-foot wide lot. And that 20 feet doesn't sound like a big deal, but when your cost is running around $600 to $700 a foot for street, that adds up pretty quick on how much that lot actually generates the cost for. And then ultimately, for every foot of street extra that we build, the town has to ultimately maintain water, sewer, and streets, curb and gutter and sidewalk, all those things you guys have to maintain for the same lot. So we're trying to accomplish several things there. One, affordable product that the builder can develop and actually provide to the future residents of the town to long-term maintenance, to be able to keep that down and not have to have so much street, so much infrastructure to serve the same lot.
So would an R6 really make that great of a difference?
It actually does. So when you're talking about an additional 20 feet at, 700 feet, it really starts to add up long-term for those lots. And when you, again, I mean, if we were in the market where lots were worth $50,000 a lot, it would be completely different. But when you're in the market where lots are worth 20 to 25,000, you're barely able to make it work with what you've got. So the extra 20 feet at that cost does make a big difference.
And now you said for this particular one, you're looking to have the transition of the smaller lots.
That's
And
right.
then for the next phase of this, that it would be larger lots?
And right now, I think we just have the one phase is still on this side of the railroad track. There may be a second phase that's still on the north side of the railroad track.
Right.
The goal would be to, as they cross the railroad track, to make that transition. I'm not gonna say that the next phase will be R4, R6, or, that product style, but definitely the goal is to, as they cross the railroad track, to become a different product.
I guess I'm just concerned of that high density and having it all there in that existing area that already has a very dense, commercial area. But I can understand the reasoning behind this and the wanting to transition. I just also too am looking at all of these surrounding areas, and we have the low density and the medium density, and then all the way over here, we have that higher density. So it just, it doesn't necessarily jive.
And ideally, if the owners had it their way, it would be commercial, because commercial is worth a lot more money.
Right,
But I think, like I said, right now, they can't push commercial any further back.
okay,
So they're trying to come up with, what's the next product type? And it could be apartments, it could be, duplexes or townhomes, but they wanted a single family style product. So that's why they went with the highest density single family they could get.
okay.
Kevin, my only concern is this proposal here is for residential housing on the north side of the track.
Correct.
You got Walmart there, and then you go extend the street out and go ahead for residential.
Right.
I don't want to see down the road, when you go across the track, would there be a potential interest in trying to put commercial on the other side of the railroad track? Because if you do, that breaks up the flow of houses that's going across there. You got commercial, then you got residential, then you got commercial, then you got residential
And right
again.
now, you're right, that whole thing is commercial.
Right, and I
So that is
wouldn't want to see commercial come in on the south side of the track.
From a planning standpoint, and the way I look at it, once you made that transition to residential, I would agree with you. I don't know that I would, as a planning staff, as a council, would want to agree to go to commercial again. You wouldn't want to flip flop back.
No, I don't want to see that.
Once it stops being commercial, it has to be residential the rest of the way. I would agree with that.
Now, is that also the case though on the east side? So I know it's just for that smaller part of that, but now are we losing that whole entire corridor? Is that now all becoming residential because of what we're doing here?
I would say to some degree, yes. I'm not saying it can't transition to some kind of office style, but
Some O and
the heavy
I.
commercial, I think we're done as far as going back. They're just not going to get that far away from Eastern Avenue and go, that East Point.
Even with
Road.
the extension of the road coming in?
It's just not right now. No commercials pushing that way. So, again, I'm not saying
Yeah.
it wouldn't or couldn't.
I just don't see where else commercial is going to push.
Where commercial would probably want to stay on the side that's facing the expansion, the widening of the streets. You wouldn't want to come across the field. That's my only concern, but the town does need some more residents.
Kevin, what square footage are we talking about?
So
So
right now,
1,400.
the house product I've been told is 38 by 50, which pushes right at, I guess, 1,900 to 2,000 square feet. So that's the size house they're looking. But they want a 38-foot wide buildable pad, and then I think it's around 50 foot. But again, that can vary based on market, but that's the pad size that we've been asked.
And we're looking at 104 residents,
Well, I think that's the number of lots.
number of lots,
Over 40 right now is all we're proposing.
40. Okay.
Any other questions for him?
Well, I don't have a question, but I have some concern too about the density, and especially if that entire portion of land there along Oak Level Road ends up becoming all residential. I mean, I understand what you're saying about not catching any commercial development, but it would certainly be nice if we could have something coming that way that is commercial. If we do that as residential, then once you start with a high density how easy is it going to be to then transition into a lower density such that you're not impacting those homes already existing in the Woodfield area? It does raise some
Yeah.
concerns for me.
Good concern.
And I think too, if we are going to go forward with this, that we need to do something with the language in this R4
Yeah.
portion of the code, because
I
we're
agree.
clearly not following what the intent was here.
Any other questions for Kevin? Thank you, Kevin, and Kate, thank you for your input. Do I hear a motion that we approve this request to rezone the property?
Move to approve.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
All those in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No?
No,
So we have,
2 noes and 2 yeses.
Who knows?
Fair?
we need a tiebreaker.
see, I'm confused. I mean, I see both sides, you know, but I have the same concern that Kate and Lynn have, that we're gonna get caught into this cycle.
Well, Mayor, what I see, if we go ahead and approve this now and in the future, it jumps across the track to the south side, then yes, that should stay residential as everything around it would be. If any commercial would try to come in, you'd have to move further north down and start, and that would not be a break in the residential. If you move north, like going to Oak Level Crossroad and pick up a commercial, then once that started, then it had to be commercial all the way out. That's my take on it.
And once we, would we have to change it back to commercial if we approve this?
No, but we're not going that
This
far down right
changes.
now.
Zoning parcel.
Right. It will change that on the map though.
Rest of the
Right.
property.
Right.
Just this one.
So we're just affected that one little area
yes, ma'am,
tonight.
Just this one area, and the planning board recommendation was 4.
Okay.
4 for
And one thing we have the opportunity to do with our upcoming comprehensive plan update
Mhm.
and the new land use plan, before phase 2 of this likely ever happens, we will have that document finished. And we can have on there our land use plan that this property along that corridor, you know, that abuts East Point, Southeast Point Avenue on either side, be larger commercial lots. And then once you get off of that, residential. And you could have an opportunity to, when we adopt the land use plan and the public or the comprehensive plan, obviously we'll have the public hearing on that. I'm sure that document will be reviewed with interest by property owner to make sure that it's consistent with kind of the idea that they have. I know Steve Newcomb told me that they want to reserve, at least up to the railroad track, anything on East Point Avenue as commercial. So they can continue that commercial corridor and hopefully get more things like Boyce Willis Clinic, maybe another branch bank. But he also is realistic in those 2 lots by Walmart. They've been there and available for 12 years and they haven't had any takers on them yet. So some of what Kevin is saying is that commercial just isn't naturally migrating that way, but I think that would change once East Point Avenue got through to Oak Level Road.
Now, would an R6 be a good transition into the larger lot sizes of like the Woodfield, or is the R6 the same as Woodfield?
No, I think Woodfield's are.
Woodfield's R10, right?
Woodfield's on R10.
R10. So low density is R10.
R10, R15, and R30.
Okay.
So we're just approving that one little area.
Just that one parcel.
Okay, and the planning board did approve it.
And the other parcels will come before you before they can do anything with them.
Okay, good. Well, then I vote to grant the request to rezone. All right, the next item is the Fire Station 2 Capital Project Ordinance. And on On June 15th, 2020, Nash County Commissioners approved the town of Nashville's request to increase the NS Gully Fire ad valorem tax rate to 0.15 per 100. And attached is the Fire Station 2 Capital Project Ordinance, which dedicates increased tax revenue to the construction of a second firehouse. Would anybody want to speak to this? If not, do I hear a motion?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Sam's not here tonight, so I really can't pose the question to her, but maybe just to make a comment. Again, my experience was that once we had solid figures from the construction was when we would actually set up the project construction part of the budget. I understand that we definitely need something budgeted now regarding land purchase, permitting, professional services, but and I'm ready to approve it tonight, but I would like it at least noted in the minutes that at such time as we have valid numbers through the bidding process, that the project ordinance would need to be amended.
Thank you. Any other input or questions? Louise?
Yes, I do. Randy, I harken back to August of 19, when you brought the fire station to us. And it was at $1 million. And it was anticipated to be like 7,200 square feet. And now we're at 1.4. Are we held to that 1.4 or 1 million?
Well, the ordinance sets the project essentially at 1.4. Last year, when the numbers first came, Louise, we were looking at a gift of 3 acres of land for this. That is not the case anymore, so now we have to purchase land.
I know, but you were allotting about 100,000 for that, according to this.
So, and when, before we have actual solid numbers to go forward with, like Lynn said, we're going to have to make a request for professional services for architects, and then they will come up with a cost estimate for the actual project. Right now, those numbers are just the staff's best estimate of what this is going to cost. Those initial numbers that we talked about were based upon the fire chief's investigation of what some of the surrounding fire stations have been built for per square foot. So he applied that same square footage, that dollar per square foot to that 7,200 size, and that's approximately what it came up to. But we got legal, we got land acquisition, we have surveying, we have the architect fees. When the fire chief was looking at it, he was looking strictly at construction costs, none of the ancillaries that go with that.
And I think initially we were only looking at it to be granted a 2-acre lot. And since we had some looking at the lot, now we need 3 acres rather than 2 to accommodate the turning radius for that ladder truck. So we've gone from 2 acres to 3 acres. So that had something to do with it.
Yeah. Now, that's not to say we can't get a real good deal on land.
Right.
The mayor's got a plan for that.
Well, is this sketch still in play, or is that,
Again, that's the staff's idea of what we would like the firehouse to look like. Its actual dimensions and size and layout are all going to be what the architect comes up with, given our budget for what we want to spend.
so we're at 1.4 as opposed to 1 million?
Correct. Correct.
Do we think that the 100,000 is going to purchase the land for the property? I mean, that's what we have here.
That's what you have there.
Land purchase, permitting, professional services.
It'll get
So
us
you're
started.
talking
I
about-
don't know if it's going to cover the land purchase plus the initial architect fees for designing it. I'd be surprised if 100,000 does that.
So this could really bloom into a lot of expense.
Well, parts of it. I don't think the overall project's going to be more than 1.4. But again, we won't know until we hire the architect and they start working with designs.
A lot of ifs.
Yeah, there
Or,
are,
you know, and like I said, we started at 1 million and all of a sudden we got 1.4. Okay, 3 cents, what does that translate? 38,000 a penny additionally?
oh, on the fire tax?
Yeah.
It would bring in approximately 120,000 a year.
Okay.
Any other discussion or questions or input?
I would
Okay.
certainly be willing to go forward with some amount in the project ordinance in order for us to pursue purchasing the land, arranging to get architects, some of those fees and some of the legal fees that would be associated with it. And I don't know what that amount might be. Randy, you say that you think the 100,000 may be low. And then at such time as we have like I said, a valid project that's been bid, come back at that time in order to amend the project ordinance to include any project cost related to the actual building.
We can do that.
What amount do you think?
Well, we budgeted 100,000 in the FY21 budget for the start of Fire Station 2. That's why the
That would
ordinance
get
has that dollar amount.
That would get us started at least
Yes.
with it. Understanding, of course, that we will come back and amend the project ordinance. That's without a question. So, I mean,
Lynn, would you like to put that in the form of a motion?
I would be glad to, Mayor. I move that we approve the project ordinance at a rate of $100,000 for now in order to continue to pursue the project, land purchase, architectural fees, and any other permitting type fees. And then at such time as we have valid bidded numbers for a project, we will of course come back and amend the project ordinance.
Okay, there's been a motion and a second. All those in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much. Let's move on to our new business. Our first new business is, Randy, do you want to talk with them about this? This is the problem we had with the rain of the drive and the car drive. And is that Aubrey Court and Village Lane Street flooding?
Correct, our drive 2 in there. So when Stony Creek flooded the week before last, we had 6 inches of rain in about 8 hours. And this particular part of town, which is Parr Drive, Windy Oak Drive, Laurel Springs, we also have in there Village Lane and Aubrey Court, are relatively flat. And the stormwater, when you get that much, it is more than what the infrastructure for draining can handle. Now, one thing we have done, we being myself and Kevin Barnell with Stocks Engineering, the town engineer, have gone out and looked at this since then. And I believe before the meeting, there were some photos passed around about Don Kelly's house and what it looked like that Wednesday morning after all that rain. He had 8 inches of water literally surrounding his house and flowing between his detached garage and his house out to Windy Oak Drive, where it would pick up the storm sewer and then get carried to the east before it heads south out of town. So what we've discovered is that 24-inch pipe that's in the ground does not have an over the land route, so that when its capacity is exceeded, the water doesn't go anywhere and it stacks up behind to the point where it gets so deep it flows through Mr. Kelly's property. If we were to construct a swale over top the pipe, 1.5 to 2 feet deep, once that pipe fills up, it would have an over the land route to flow and exit Parr Drive, Village Lane, and Aubrey Court. And we wouldn't have the extent of street flooding that we experienced, the last week, because it would have an over the land route to go. Now, I'd hope to have for tonight's meeting some bids from contractors for doing that. Like I said, Kevin met Lee and I out there and we looked at it, and it seems like a relatively inexpensive way to address this problem. It's not going to cure it because those areas are just so flat and you get that much rain on them we can't build infrastructure large enough to carry it because we can't get any slope on it. I mean, Kevin did find a study that he did back in 2004. It actually measured the bottom of the pipe going through Windy Oak and Laurel Springs Drive. And from one end to the other, there's like 6/100ths of a difference of elevation between them. You can't get hardly, that's almost dead flat. But that's the situation we're dealing with there. You can't make those pipes any lower than what they drain into, which is the large open waterway at South Creek. But anyway, I hope to have some more for you guys to discuss here this evening with regard to this, but I don't.
But I think, Randy, they are taxpaying citizens and we need to take care of them. They don't need for this to happen again. And so I think we need to move forward with it.
My
Well,
question
if
is,
you would like a few more questions, Kevin's here to answer some too.
I was
Louise?
wondering, has this happened before?
I don't think it's happened to this extent.
The
That's why-
homeowner did say that it happened with Hurricane Matthew, was it,
Yeah.
that recently
It
happened?
has flooded
And that
before.
the neighbor has footage of it.
It has flooded before.
Yeah,
That's an awful lot of water.
it is. It is. And if it was our home, we'd be the same way that they
And
were.
with hurricane season upon us.
Exactly. Now, let me ask you this question. Is it related to the land that we've had problems getting fixed?
On Par Drive, the fact that there is no over the land route for water to go through the Windy Oak and Laurel Springs Drive neighborhood through that drainage easement is what backs up the water and causes the street flooding on Par Drive, Village Lane, and Albee Court. There's no doubt about it. It's all that area drains through this drainage easement that you see on your sheet here tonight.
And what proximity of the existing draining system would the overland drain be placed? Right
So-
next to it or somewhere down?
What we were talking about is a design, it's a 40-foot wide drainage easement and literally start on either side, 20 feet, and go down to a depth of about this deep.
So just a gradual,
Be very gradual. It would be enough that when the pipe's full, the water would have a route to go, but it would be dry bottom all other times. It would be grass that could be mowed and played upon. I mean, it's already encumbered with a drainage easement, so you can't put a structure on it.
Would it create some erosion?
I don't think so, because this is only going to have water flowing through it, Larry, once every third year when we get the heavy rains.
So worst case scenario, we probably may have to go back and put rock in it.
Well, I don't even think you have to do that. If it's kept in grass, a lot of times what the grass does, for the few hours that this is going to have drainage flowing over it,
Would hold
I
it in
don't think
place.
it's going to erode or scour. Now, I could be wrong.
now you said it's not going to cure the problem, but will it cure it enough so that this homeowner and the homeowners surrounding won't have to worry about it drowning electric boxes, going in their crawl spaces?
I sure hope so. Now, to answer that question, we're going to have a more detailed stormwater study of that area completed and done. And Kevin is here this evening. He's prepared a cost estimate for doing that. And if you wish, he can discuss that with you now and give you some idea about that. Not that you have to make any decision on it here tonight. I have this on the agenda again for next Tuesday, so we can discuss it further. It might give you an opportunity to have some more thoughts. Hear from more constituents regarding it. So Kevin, if you would.
So again, Randy Lee and I met on site and kind of walked the area, looked at it. We actually had done, I guess, some work at South Creek back in 2004 when we started doing some drainage around town. So that's why we actually had a few surveys of where we had surveyed that pipe system to try to figure out things that could be done at the time. So what we did in 2004, we kind of regraded the bottom ditch, which is at the very bottom end of this drainage system. And again, really over time, I think we've got 15 years of some setup build up, some shifting things, and there are a few things that could get better. My biggest concern is shifting the problem downstream. So if we fix the upstream problem at Mr. Kelly's house and we do the overland flow, all we're doing is sending that water faster downstream. And what I don't want to cause is we fix this problem and now next time we're dealing with the next landowner
Right.
and we start chasing this issue. downstream. So the goal was, let's look at all of it together. Let's come up with where we really need to spend our money in the right locations, not just start fixing spots that are hot spots right now, and come up with a comprehensive plan for the whole area, all the way from Hard Drive, all the way through the bottom end of South Creek. That whole area is a fairly good sized drainage area that drains really from the park out on 58, all the way through those subdivisions coming from Birchwood and all drain through the bottom end of South Creek. So I'm leery of saying, let's fix this top end problem. And then 2, 3, 4, 5 years from now, we're dealing with an adjacent landowner who we just put a lot more water on them.
How many more construction sites do we have out there to put homes?
At the South Creek, I think the South Creek is done. So you're talking about Par Drive, and I don't know how many are left. Are there any left?
It's full.
I think they're full.
So there are a few on Village Lane. Yeah.
Right. Which is the same drainage area.
Mhm.
But again, I mean, I think that's it as far as the residential.
A few as in 2 or 3 or half a dozen or what?
I think right at about half a dozen, Larry, if I were to venture.
Now, how long would the study take to do?
Once we were, I guess, got started and go through all that, you're looking probably about 4 weeks.
Okay.
No.
So you're proposing something more comprehensive than just the,
Right.
Not an extravagant study that's going to take a year to do, enough to give us good information to say, this is where we need to spend our money to try to solve these problems. It'll give you locations, it'll give you budgets and ideas of just how we kind of move forward to make sure we're not fixing this issue, causing other issues. But again, it's not going to be a 100-page report that we're reading. It'll be, 10 to 20-page report, that's a good summary of what we've got going on.
At the end of the day, this might still be the best option, but we just need to make sure that we're not causing another problem
Well,
by fixing this one.
Yeah, so at the end of the day, I know what we have talked about is a great option to fix that location,
Right.
but then we're also putting in a tremendous amount of water back to the same pipe.
Right.
So now, as we start chasing it, we think we may need to lower the road too.
Mhm.
And if we lower the road, now that water keeps going out. But now we're downstream to the next property. So we've got to make sure that water keeps going and it doesn't get back into another pond again, which is what essentially is created right now. There's a 36-inch pipe that lets all the water out, and it's a dam all the way around it. So once that pipe system is overwhelmed, it's going to get to a point where it stops. And the problem with drainage is we design drainage systems for a certain storm event. We can't design it for every storm event that we're going to get. So there will be a storm event that every storm drain system fails. So and all storms are different. So the flood of 99 flooded different places than Matthew did, just because of how the rains came. So we're trying to pick a storm event that works. DOT says the 25-year. A lot of our in-town systems are on the 10-year storm event. And what we want is an emergency overflow. When everything does fail, because it will fail at some point, it has somewhere to go other than in someone's crawl space or in their house. So that's kind of the goal of what the study would do.
Kevin, as an engineer, this recent rainfall that we had, 6, 7 inches, whatever it was, that was highly unusual, wasn't it?
Well, the answer-
I've never seen anything like this, other than a hurricane.
Right. Well, and in June, I mean, it's an odd time too. So, and again, it gets back to storm drain systems are designed for a certain event. And the 10-year storm, for instance, in this area will be around 7 inches an hour. And we say the 10-year storm doesn't mean it happens once every 10 years. It means there's a 10% chance of it happening this year. So that's the way we word it kind of sounds funny, but so at the end of the day, you can certainly get, hurricane storm events that take us up to a certain elevation in certain locations, but if you get the same amount of rain over 5 days versus the same amount of rain in 6 hours, it makes a big difference on how those storm drain systems work. When you go back to 99, really what happened there wasn't a lot of localized type flooding. It was regional flooding. So you started getting back up from the Tar River, Stony Creek, and they started backing things up. What we saw in Matthew in this storm event was we saw very localized flooding that caused a lot of issues. And we still had Stony Creek flooding in Tar River, but the cause of the flooding in adjacent areas really wasn't the rainfall that they got. It was the regional rainfall backed up into the area. Does that make sense? So it's really 2 different storm events, but the one we just had really almost got to the 99 flood stage of where we were if you look at the flood stage level. So on Stony Creek, we were very, very close to where it was then.
Any other questions for Kevin? Any discussion among this council? Do I hear a recommendation that they study, that he studies this and
I
we
think
move forward?
the sooner we can resolve this, the better. I make a recommendation that we do the study.
Kevin, did you have a cost? Was,
I did the price I sent you this morning for the entire study, all the modeling and stuff is $12,400.
you know, we have that stormwater fee that brings in
Right.
143,000 a year. We got 30,000 designated for projects. We got another 30,000 designated to go in the capital reserve for future projects. So that's where we would get the money to cover this study. And that's where we would get the money to do the over the land route through Windy Oak Drive and Laurel Springs Drive drainage.
Do we have an approximate amount for what that would be?
I don't, you know, they're gonna cut down both roads so that, you know, when the water gets so high, it flows over, but it'll be very gradual, so you won't drag your car, your pickup, your trailer through that. And, you know, so we'll have to put the road back, surface back, because it's such a small area, it'll likely be concrete versus asphalt, which is out there now, but it would likely be less expensive to do concrete than asphalt anyway, because, you know, when you do asphalt, you have to have a small army of people in order to do it, because once it gets cool, you can't work with it anymore. Concrete's different.
Yeah, we've got to do something, so.
Do I hear a motion?
So motion.
we got
Okay,
Second.
All those in favor, let it be known by saying aye. Motion carries, so we will get this problem fixed.
Randy,
Try to anyway.
you say the stormwater brings in every year.
The stormwater fee brings in about 143,000.
And we designate 30 each year.
We
for
have,
projects.
well, we've designated more in the past.
Okay,
Last fiscal year, we designated 50. This year, we did 30, but put 30 in contingency.
right.
All right.
Let's move on to our resolution of the waiver of library fines during COVID-19 closure. It says per Governor Cooper's executive order number 124, H.D. Cooley Library was closed to the public from March 16, 2020 to June 8, 2020. As a result, library patrons were unable to return books and other checked out materials to the library and incurred late return fines per the library's late return policy. And so there's a request that we waiver the library fines incurred during the library's COVID-19 closure. And there's a resolution that we do that. And if you look at that, it's on the next page and it reads, whereas Governor Cooper's executive order number 124 closed A.R.D. Cooley Library to the public from March 15, 2020 to June 8, 2020 in response to the COVID-19 pandemic. And whereas library patrons were unable to return books and other checked out materials to the library during this time. And whereas per the library's late return policy, library patrons incurred late return fines during this period. Now therefore be it resolved by the Town Council of the Town of Nashville, North Carolina, that late return fines incurred at Harold D. Cooley Library between March 16, 2020 to July 6, 2020 are hereby waived and expunged. Adopt this the first day of July the 2020 in Nashville, North Carolina.
Move to approve.
Second.
All those in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
The resolution is approved. Thank you very much. Do any of the council members have any comments?
I just want to say thank you to the members of the public that reached out regarding the zoning issues. These are important issues. We need to hear from you. And also to the public who had a concern and had a problem with their home. We don't know about it unless you tell us. So thank you for letting us know.
I just want to say I want the council to remain safe as well as the citizens in Nashville.
I want to thank Chris and Anthony for all the work that you did during our flood. It was unprecedented. I still can't fathom that happened with 6 or 7 inches of rain.
No warning.
But anyway, thank you, because I know that you were.
Just to answer the question you asked a minute ago, we actually staked off at the old Stony Creek Park, that park down here. And as the time moved, we were able to get there, we done measurements, we sent to the national level. water was gaining ground 9.5 inches every minute.
Every
Every minute?
Every minute.
Not
Wow.
at night, but.
Not in height, spring.
Right.
spread.
9.5.
That's still a lot.
Oh, my goodness. That's
To
amazing.
me, it looked, the photos I saw, it looked worse than Matthew.
It
Asked
did.
him, I called him at 6 o'clock in the morning, and I told him, I said, we get ready to have a problem.
But do you remember Floyd when it went to the top of the overpass?
Oh, yes,
Oh, yeah.
very
I
much.
mean,
We know when it touches the bottom of the bridge, we have about 45 minutes, and it's gonna come right behind Hardee's, and it's gonna cross the road. It's faster this time with the I was wrong all the time, it's about 30 minutes.
And we saw the water rescues on the
Yes.
news.
That was, my mother helped us out, Rocky Mount. We had one at 9:30 that night. We had to get 3 off the top of a car, and that was in like 10 foot of water. So,
Was
Good
there
job.
any, sorry, go ahead.
yes, ma'am.
Was there any funding available, federal or state, to help
We
with
worked
that?
on that. We've submitted a bunch of stuff, so we don't know what's.
Don't know
going
anything
on.
yet.
It's not likely we're gonna get any kind of disaster declaration, which would then kickstart some funding. But I am pursuing another potential for pot of money for maybe some more home buyouts for Indian Trail.
Okay.
You know, we had 28 different homes out there that had water around them. I haven't found one yet that actually had water on the first floor. Well, let me rephrase that. 2 of them did, but ironically, they had gotten bought out the very same day with FEMA buyout money from Hurricane Matthew.
Mhm.
Those did have water again in the first floor, but nothing else. And I had George Jeffries was helping me, you know, talk to the people out there to find out what height the water was. But many of them are still spooked. If there was a buyout program, I'm sure they would gladly sign up for it and find someplace less aggravating to live.
And most of the businesses have recovered, I think, except maybe for the Dos Hermanos.
It opened back
Did it?
Tuesday. I
Oh, it
believe.
did?
I think everything's open now.
Okay.
And I'd just like to thank all of the departments that work so diligently doing all this, and thank the council for working together. And I appreciate the citizens, like you say, calling in and letting us know, because we can't do anything about something we don't know about. And we certainly understand when your homes are flooding, and I appreciate the input also on the rezoning issues that people contacted us about. If there are no other comments, do I hear a motion that we adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Do I hear a second? All those in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
All right.
The agenda meeting for July 1st is adjourned.